Christmas, a time of peace, love, joy, and goodwill toward all. Everybody has their own favorite Christmas thing. Mine happens to be the many anecdotes and stories that have been cultivated over years of holiday tradition and festivities. And how could it not be with so many, like Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Throughout many of these tales, we often find the narrative of a poor, lost soul who's lost all hope in life, but through the spirit of Christmas finds new meaning and a new outlook on the whole thing. However, this Christmas, in my constant search for creative inspiration, I thought to myself, what if this tale happened to an engine? And not just any engine. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite you to sit back and relax with a hot cup of cocoa and a warm fuzzy blanket, as I tell you that very tale. The tale of how the Diesel stole Christmas. Every engine on Sodor loved Christmas a lot, but the Diesel, who lived near the island's north, did not. The Diesel hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be that his cab wasn't screwed on just right. It could be that his pistons were screwed on too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all was that his motor was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his cab or his pistons, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the engines. Staring down from the scrapyard with a sour Diesel frown at the warm lighted sheds below in their town. For he knew every engine down in Tidmouth beneath was busy puffing under a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Diesel motor nervously humming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the girl, boy, and engines in their slumber at Tidmouth would wake bright and early and rush for their gifts. And then, oh the noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the people young and old would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on pudding and rare roast beast, which was something the Diesel couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every engine on Sodor, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand buffer to buffer, and the engines would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Diesel thought of this engine Christmas sing, the more the Diesel thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Diesel got a wonderful, awful idea! I know just what to do, the Diesel laughed in his throat, and he found a quick Santa Claus hat from a tote. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Diesel trick! With this hat from this tote I look just like Saint Nick! All I need is a reindeer, the Diesel looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Diesel? No! The Diesel simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his friend Philip. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big brush on top of his head. Then he found an old flatbed which he intended to fill up, and he hitched it up tight to his tiny friend Philip. Then the Diesel said gidap, and the train started down toward the sheds where the engines lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the engines were all dreaming sweet dreams without care when he came to the first little shed on the square. This is stop number 1, the old Diesel Claus hissed. If we weren't on the nice list before, thought Philip, then now our opportunity has been sorely missed. Then he slid into the yard, like an oily little weasel, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Diesel. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, as the sharp corners were hard for the flatbed to do. With a smirk, he looked around at the Christmas eccentrics, and he said, now it's time for my evil Diesel trick. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole yard, and he took every present. Pistons and wheels and springs galore, but the diesel wasn't satisfied. To truly stop Christmas, I must steal some more. Then he went to the station, straight to the coal bunker. He picked it right clean, but it didn't stop his hunger. Then he coupled it up to the flatbed with glee, and now, grinned the diesel, I'll throw on the tree. Then the diesel grabbed the tree, and soon he was shoving, but then he heard the sounds of an engine chuffing. The diesel looked back quick, and there he saw Percy, who had too much Christmas coal and was acting kinda funny. He stared at the diesel and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree, why? But you know, that old diesel was so smart and slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. Why, my dear friend, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light up on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, have no fear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. His fib fooled the engine, but the conversation was dead, so he closed the shed door and sent him to bed. And with visions of sugar plums inside Percy's head, the diesel took the tree and threw it atop the flat bed. Then he left tree and all, the slimy old liar. The last thing he took was the log for their fire. The dust and debris was to nothing alike. The only thing he left was a lump of coal, too small even for Mike. And to all the other places he did just alike, leaving pieces of coal too small for even Mike. It was 1/4 dawn, all the engines still abed, all the engines still a snooze when he packed up his flatbed. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Bumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Poo-poo to the engines, he was oilishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, then the engines on Sodor will all cry boo-hoo! That's a noise, grinned the diesel, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the diesel listened closely with his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very! He stared down at Tidmouth, the diesel popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every engine on Sodor, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming, it came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the diesel with his wheels ice cold in the snow stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the diesel thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, on Sodor they say that the diesel's small motor grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his motor didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the gifts and the coal and their tools. And he, the diesel, had their best diesel fuel. And so ends the tale of how the diesel stole Christmas, one of my favorite tales from the holiday. And this Christmas, let's remember what the diesel learned. That Christmas doesn't come from a store, that Christmas means just a little bit more. Merry Christmas, everybody, and a Happy New Year!